Things aren't going amazingly well for Manchester United at the minute, so I took it upon myself to try and take the club to Champions League glory in 4 years, and so far we've had some mixed results, so spoilers ahead for episode 1 and 2. But in episode 1 in our first season, we finished in 5th place on 71 points, just outside of the top 4, and we followed it up next year by getting 85 points, nearly enough to win the title, but just missing out, losing to Tottenham Hotspur. So clearly in the league we're making progress, but at the end of the day, we're aiming to win the Champions League, and so far our European adventures haven't gone to plan. In year 1, we did make a Europa League semi-final, but we lost 4-2 to PSG, and the year after, the team that beat us in the league, Tottenham, also knocked us out of the Europa League semi-final, beating us 5-3 on aggregate. So no European win yet, no league win, but we did manage to win some silverware for the first time last season, as we finally managed to get one over on Spurs, beating them 6-0 in a brilliant cup final. And we've done all of that whilst undergoing a squad rebuild where we've signed some stars and sold off some key players already. Bruno Fernandes was lost to Al Hilal, Harry Maguire was let go at the end of his contract, and Casemiro was sold on to Al Ahly where he eventually retired. So a lot of the big earners have left, a lot of our key players have left. We've tried to implement a new recruitment strategy here at Manchester United to sign players that fit the system and not just big names that won't work out. One example is Ryan Aït-Nouri, who we bought from a relegated Wolves. We got a bargain on Nico Schlotterbeck from Dortmund as well on the transfer list, and we signed players for the future like Rooney Bargi of FC Copenhagen. So it's definitely been a mixed time at Manchester United so far, both on the pitch and in the transfer market, but I feel like we are heading in the right direction. But with only 2 seasons to go of this rebuild, we need to try and get closer to this Champions League where we're competing for the first time in it this season. And clearly we're not favourites to win that anytime soon, because the board just want us to be competitive in the competition. The same goes for the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup they think we'll make the quarters, and the Premier League, they just want us to qualify for Champions League. So we're clearly a little bit behind where we want to be, but I have brought in some players that I think can really help us this season. But first, there was quite a few sales. The first one of which was Antony. The player that cost Manchester United a bomb has moved to Borussia Dortmund, and as you can see from his valuation at his current club Dortmund, he obviously isn't the player that Manchester United originally signed. They splashed 90 million quid on him back in the day, there or thereabouts. We've had 2 seasons with him where he's not been good at all, whether he started or been off the bench, and we've now sold him on for a very measly fee of 8.25 million, but I wanted him out. I didn't see a future for him. He frees up the wages, and look, yes, it's a big loss, but that's Manchester United's transfer that they made before me, and he's not someone that I want here any longer. Potentially a controversial transfer though, also to Borussia Dortmund, was Andre Onana, who has been loaned out for the season. The reason being is I saw value in the market for a new starting goalkeeper that will last us years, and I've gone for that option, but it did mean Onana, who wanted to be the number 1, wanted to move on for more game time. We couldn't find any suitors for him on a long-term basis, so instead he has gone out on loan to Dortmund for 5.5 million for the season, and the Cameroonian can be signed by them if they want to for 63 mil, but we'll see if they take up that option. But the sale I think we can be very happy with is Mazraoui, who is a very good right back, don't get me wrong, but age 28, when Newcastle came in for him, he said he wanted to move on for a new challenge. I actually think he said he wanted to move to a club with a stronger squad, which, you know, I feel like our team's a little bit better than Newcastle's at this stage, but either way, he decided to go, and we actually got a very good fee for him. 56 million, Newcastle and the Saudi clubs were bidding against each other, and it led to a huge profit on that original £12 million signing from United. So yes, we lost a lot on Antony, but we've made a little bit of that up with this Mazraoui sale. So with the budget we had originally and those sales, we had a ton of money to invest in our team and bring in some better players, and I definitely think we did. But before I show you them, if you could like the video, I'd massively appreciate it. We're aiming for 500 likes before we release the final episode, so go and do that for me. It will be a real help to the video here on the channel. Subscribe if you haven't as well, as we close in on 50k subs. That's a target. If you like rebuilds, then subscribe. We've got plenty of them coming, and comment down below what you think of my transfers and what team you want to see rebuilt next. But with that being said, let's take a look at the signings. And I mentioned that I found value in the market with a new goalkeeper, and it is this guy, Noah Atabulu. Now, if you don't know know about him, he is Freiburg's current starting goalkeeper and seen as kind of the future of the international spot for Germany at only age 22, 23. In this world, he's played 2 seasons now for Freiburg as their main goalkeeper and has developed very nicely, but he wanted to move to a bigger club. Because of that, he was transfer listed. 40 million was great value for a goalkeeper that I think could be world class in no time. Our scouts thought he was better than Onana already, and he's only 24, so time will tell if this was a good signing, but I feel like we've pulled one off here. Speaking of signings from the Bundesliga though, we brought in another one with the signing of Eric Jr. Dina Mbembe, who is a French 25-year-old versatile midfielder who can also appear at right back if needed. Now, he is not a star in any sense, but he is good at literally everything. All of his attributes are great, so well-rounded, gives us lots of options, lots of versatility, and he will be a great squad player for years to come, I think. Age 25, we picked him up for 16 million from Frankfurt, where he did really well last season, caught the eyes of our scouts, and the former PSG man, I think, is an excellent addition to this United squad. And now for the final signing, also from the Bundesliga. We have spent big money on our new right back. I say big money, well, you'll see in a second. We've brought in Jeremy Frimpong, the Netherlands international 25-year-old from Bayer Leverkusen. Now, he cost us 55 million, rising to 58, which you might recognise is pretty much the fee that we got for Mazraoui. So, I actually think this is an upgrade. He's younger, he's got a few years left in the tank, and he kind of suits the attacking style that we're looking to play a little bit more. He wants to be an important player, and I'm hoping he will live up to that. He is a great option, a brilliant signing at right back, and I actually think in terms of what we've bought in this season, we've been pretty conservative in the market and bought players in that actually suit the tactic and suit what the club needs at this moment. Now, according to the game, this is what our current best 11 would look like. It would be Otterbulu in goal with Frimpong, De Ligt, Schlotterbeck and Shaw as a very good defensive line. Now, this is Luke Shaw's last season on his contract, and I think I'm not going to renew it. He's on so much money and he wants so much money still for his next deal, and I'm not sure I want to do that. So time will tell on that situation. But our best midfield is supposedly Ugarte, Dina Mbembe and Mason Mount, with a forward line of Garnacho, Rashford and Højlund. Now, I know a lot of people in the comments have been saying Rashford's not good enough, maybe in real life, but in game for me, he has served me well. Last season particularly, he was one of the best players in world football, so I've got to keep him around for now at least, unless a big offer comes in. There's plenty of great players on the bench and in the reserves too. I think this all bodes well for the future of this team. Speaking of the future, lots of young prospects will get opportunities this season. Kobbie Mainoo continues to develop in our midfield. Lenny Yoro is ready to break out in that centre-back spot. And Rooney Bargi is finally here. We signed him last season but allowed him to stay for another year at Copenhagen. So he served that, only played a few times for them, but now he comes back ready to influence this Manchester United first team, and I think he'll do that pretty quickly. We are pretty covered in every position. Our goalkeepers are currently Attabulu and Bayandir. At right back, we've got Frimpong and Dalot. At left back, Luke Shaw, Ait-Nouri and Schlotterbeck give us options, whilst he also features as one of our best defenders alongside Martinez, Yoro, De Ligt and Nathan Zeze, who we are currently looking to loan out, so we'll see where he goes. We signed him in season 1 and I think he's been good value. Midfield, you pretty much know the options that we've already mentioned. Lucas Paqueta is still here, of course, Zambrano and Lewis Ferguson. Then going forward, Marcus Edwards is on the wing with all of your usual suspects. And then up top, we've of course got Højlund and Xerxes ready to keep scoring goals for us. Now, after all of those signings, you might think we'd have, predicted second place based on last year because we did finish there, but no, we are still predicted 5th, 10-1 odds of winning the title. It could happen, it's just not very likely, and clearly there's some teams considered way better than us, and maybe Mazraoui has made the right move because Newcastle supposedly are a better squad than us and predicted 3rd place. So it's going to be a tough season. Now, our pre-season has gone well with lots of friendly wins, but we've got a pretty tough start to the season, with our first match being a Community Shield clash with Spurs. Now, they were unbelievable last year, as we know, winning the league and the Europa League and coming very close to winning the FA Cup, but we came here with a chip on our shoulder and Frimpong got us off to a great start, assisting Højlund. As good of a start to a Manchester United career as he could possibly have wanted, I would have thought. Dina Mbembe then got in the act with a cross through to Højlund, who scored a second, and that resulted in us getting a Community Shield win. It's not a competition we're really going to shout home about, but it does bode well for the start of this season. Or so we thought, because after beating Brentford on opening day, we went away to Stamford Bridge against Chelsea in a test that we really needed to win, and Mason Mount scored against his old club to get us off to a flyer. But unfortunately, in only our second match of the Premier League campaign, we dropped points, and Nkunku finding Mateus Nunes, who equalised, and that was that. And only a couple games later, things got worse, as Wilfried Gnonto scored 1 for Leeds, and only a couple of minutes after that, Leeds got a second at Ellen Road to beat us 2-0, a very disappointing day for any United fan. So after everything we've done in pre-season, the Community Shield, or the transfers we've made, we've already dropped points at the start of the year in games we would not have wanted to, and we've definitely had some mixed results. So imagine then when I see our first Champions League game and we've got to play Real Madrid, it's not looking good. Or at least so I thought, because in the 24th minute we actually did take the lead. A corner from Luke Shaw ended up coming back to him, which allowed him to find Rashford at the back post to give us a 1-0 advantage. Another set piece not long after that from Mason Mount found De Ligt, who passed it on to Shaw, and we went 2-0 up. A second half counter-attack from Garnacho allowed us to get in on Real Madrid's right hand side. He drove past their defence and made it free, before another set piece goal later on, Mason Mount finding Schlotterbeck to make it 4. So the start of the season has already been as mixed as season 1 and 2 had. I really don't know how to feel about this team, but I was hoping that would be the catalyst for some great results going forward. And it very well may have been, because in the following months we beat Crystal Palace 5-0, Borussia Dortmund 5-1, and a fantastic 6-2 win against Newcastle. So does that mean we had suddenly found our feet and we were playing amazingly well? Well, not really, because we lost 3-1 at Anfield, 2-0 at the Emirates, 4-0 at the Etihad, but perhaps the worst result of all came away at the London Stadium against West Ham, because in the 12th minute they already got a 1-goal advantage, Wan-Bissaka finding Seema for the opener. A Fulkrug penalty made it 2 before half time, or at least we thought we had a 2-0 advantage going into the break, because not too long afterwards Ward-Prowse found Seema again, who drove a low shot past Atabulu and made it 3. And if that wasn't already bad enough, James Ward-Prowse hit a curler of a free kick which Atabulu spilled, Zuma headed home. Now I've obviously just showed you a lot of losses, but we were getting wins in between as well, and heading into the January transfer window we weren't doing too bad in all competitions. It was just those odd results where I really wondered where our progress was going, because we of course won the Community Shield, the Carabao Cup we were knocked out in the quarterfinals by Man City, we were still in the FA Cup, the Champions League we had done pretty well and we'd already qualified for the next stage after the league phase, and the league table we were 6 points behind Manchester City on 40 points after 19 games. Not too bad. But if we're going to try and make a push for the league title and a Champions League trophy, we need more consistency, and it looks like we might need some reinforcements in the January window, so I got to spending. We started though by parting ways with some players that were complaining about game time, which was bringing the club down. The first one was Lucas Paqueta, who we have loaned out to Sporting Club de Portugal for the season, having only played 3 times this year. He hasn't been as important for us as he was last season, so he goes on loan for the next 6 months and we'll probably look to sell him when he comes back. Surprisingly, we moved on Altay Bayandыр as well. Our backup goalkeeper has moved to Besiktas now. They came in out of nowhere and offered 18 million, rising to 20, which for our second choice goalie, I felt like I had to accept. Age 28, the Turkish international goes back to Turkey to play some more. But I also ended up loaning out Joshua Zirkzee. You'll see why in a minute, because we bought in some brilliant attacking players, but Zirkzee has moved to Ajax on loan for the season. He was doing okay for us, but was only coming off the bench. He was upset at that, so we send him to Ajax to keep playing, hopefully develop some more, maybe sell him on when he comes back, or reevaluate his position next summer. But then we get to the incomings, where I feel like we've massively improved the squad, particularly with one signing. The less major of the two, but still a very good signing, was Erkan Kokcu, who has joined us. He's a Turkish 26-year-old who signs from Benfica, where he has been very good, kind of comes in to take Paqueta's minutes. He's also better at this stage of his career. £30 million was the fee for a very talented midfielder that I'm hoping can run the show in our midfield and kind of fill in that Bruno Fernandes void that was left last year. But our big signing was Samu Omaridian, who comes in to compete with Højlund. We have signed him from Porto for a release clause fee of 47.5 million. A brilliant forward that doesn't just provide backup for Rasmus, but will actually probably push him and maybe even overtake him as our starting striker. So we have got a great squad for the future now. He's young and full of potential. Speaking of the future though, just a quick announcement. As some of you may know, I have a Patreon in the description, which really helps support me when anyone comes over, and in return, I usually give out the save files for these videos. Now I am going to continue to do that, but I'm looking to improve the Patreon in a massive way, so we're going to start got not just having those save files, but also early video access, which of course you'll get ad-free viewing over on Patreon too. I'm also going to be looking to do some giveaways, live chats. I'm really trying to make my Patreon a great place to be for you guys. Obviously it helps support me, but I want to give as many perks and as many benefits back to you lot. So if you want to come and check it out, I'd massively appreciate it. But let's go see what our best squad looks like now. And it is pretty much what we've seen before, except Kobbie Mainoo has now developed into a regular starter for us, and Samu comes in as our best striker. The only issue is he is injured for the first 7 weeks or so he hasn't been registered yet, so he's not going to be playing for a while this season. One highlight of the campaign so far though has definitely been Rooney Bargi, who like I said was on loan last year at Copenhagen. He's came back now and really implementing himself in the first team. 4 goals, 6 assists in 19 appearances, 8 of which he started, so I think they are great returns from the youngster, and fingers crossed he can become a key player for us, and we've needed him in some of the most recent games. Because it was the young Swede who actually got us the opener away at Tottenham Hotspur when Garnacho played it across and he tapped him from close range. Now he did end up going on to lose that game 3-2, but thankfully despite that result, we have been starting to fix some of the errors that we had at the start of this season. One big sin we had to atone for was losing to Leeds at Ellen Road, so when Rashford got us off to a flyer in the first minute after this great run, it definitely bode well. We then added a second from the corner before even the 10-minute mark, clearly with a point to prove. But late on in the game, we managed to add a third, Ferguson tucking away and giving us a victory. We also managed to settle the score against Arsenal too, when Rooney Bargi's corner found the lit. Arsenal did hit back after Kieran Tierney found Saka in the area, but as time ticked on at Old Trafford, we did manage to bag the winner. Aït-Nouri down the left-hand side, doing one of his signature drives, playing it across, and an own goal from Saliba gave us a win. So, some much better results all around in the league, but how was the Champions League going? Well, we'd had a brilliant league phase. We qualified for the knockout rounds, where our first game was Celtic, who we dispatched comfortably, leading to a quarter-final clash against Atletico Madrid. As you'd expect against Atletico though, it was a very dull game, quite a boring one, but we did manage to get the winner through Marcus Rashford, and with that, suddenly we were in the Champions League semi-final. Now of course the aim is to win the UCL in our 4 years here, but if I can win it in season 3, I'm not going to complain at all. The only issue is in the semis, we were up against one of our rival clubs, Liverpool. Now a lot is made of Anfield on European nights, but after this Robertson error in the 15th minute in the first leg, we did actually manage to go 1-0 up away from home through Højlund, and it was the Danish forward who managed to seal the deal in the 90th minute of the game. Dina Mbimbe found him in the area and he managed to take a low finish past Alisson. Liverpool did manage to pull one back at Old Trafford though. A poor clearance from Schlotterbeck found Federico Chiesa, who managed to pass it to Leao, who scored. And as time ticked on, Liverpool were having plenty of chances, but kind of out of nowhere, Garnacho found Aït-Nouri, who drove a shot in past Alisson to make it 3-1. And with 90 minutes on the clock, Marcus Edwards on the right wing helped us seal the deal. He pulled the ball back to Samu, it came out clear, and a poor mistake from Alisson allowed Kokchu to score, and we were suddenly heading to a Champions League final. Now we were out of the Carabao and the FA Cup, but we were also playing league matches as well and finding ourselves in a title race. In the final months of the season, we got great results like a 6-0 win at Burnley, a 6-0 win against Cardiff, and a 3-1 away win against Brighton. But the big test was Manchester City, the team leading the title charge. Despite all of our good form, their form had been better, so when we had to play them at Old Trafford, we were hoping if we could get a result, it might put some pressure on them. And we played brilliantly at Old Trafford. Rooney Bargi finding Højlund, who managed to get the opener. Mason Mount was integral in the next goal though, playing a ball to Rooney Bargi on the wing, who found Samu, who made it 2. And late on, we managed to add a third, Mainoo to Rashford, into the area, into the back of the net, and we had managed to beat Manchester City. Now, like I say, it was between us and them for the title, but despite all of our wins, they've been winning way more, and unfortunately, it was another year of heartache. Now, remember, we were only asked to get in the top 4, and we have finished second yet again, 81 points, but we are 8 points away from Man City at the top of the league. We lost 2 more games than them, drew 1 more than they did, had decent goal difference, but still not as much as them, so they are clearly ahead of us. It's just gutting that for 2 years in a row, we've done pretty well, but ending up falling short. So yes, the domestic cups didn't go well, but in the league, we had done a pretty good job, one that we could be proud of, but of course, we'd be even prouder this season if we could manage to win the Champions League final. The only team standing in our way was PSG. And it was a battle of a game, two very tough teams, two titans of football going up against each other, but Frimpong missing this tackle on Dembele allowed him to open the scoring after a mazy run, but in the 35th minute, we were able to hit a goal back of our own. Aït-Nouri with a long ball to Garnacho, who finished brilliantly to equalise. And after that, despite chances, there were no more goals until extra time when Lee Kang-in found Goncalo Ramos to give PSG the win, or so we thought, because in the second half of extra time, after pressing for a long time, Zambrano found Rashford, who brought it down well, played it across to Samu, who scored the goal to equalise. And that meant we were now heading to penalties to decide who would win the Champions League. Up first was Joshua Kimmich, who bagged his penalty. It was Rashford next for United, and he managed to score. Yeremy Pino, a player that we tried to sign ourselves, stepped up to put his side 2-1 up. Up stepped Mason Mount for our second penalty, and unfortunately it was saved. Kang-in Lee was taken for PSG next and continued their 100% record from the spot, before young Englishman Marcus Edwards took it upon himself to get one back. Goal scorer Goncalo Ramos added a fourth for PSG, before Kobe Mainoo stepped up and tucked it away. And then up stepped Vitinha. If he scored, PSG won. Otabulu came close but just missed, and unfortunately it was another heartache for our Manchester United side. We had lost a Premier League title to one team, and this year, the Champions League, we made it to the final but lost out at the last hurdle. Really unfortunate in all competitions. All we have to show for this great year is a Community Shield, but I think this definitely bodes well for the future, because this season some new stars broke out. We had our usuals in Rashford and Højlund and Schlotterbeck, but Rooney Bargi was one of our best this year. Garnacho did great. Ferguson, Mount really taking a step up into the team, as did Ryan Aït-Nouri, who in the second half of the season had become our starting left back over Luke Shaw. There's more to come as well from Samu, who of course had that injury-ridden season, only played 8 times for us, but scored that crucial goal in the Champions League final. I have also made the decision to let Luke Shaw go at the end of his contract, so he's going to be on his way out. I'm going to have 30 million to spend in our last year with plenty of wage budget, and I'm sure more money once we sell some players to improve this team. The facilities we've pretty much maxed out. We're trying to improve the stadium, but our board seems to be against it. And in the dev centre, we've got some good young under 18 talents coming through who we can hopefully integrate into the first team and bring through the next class of 92. And with that, the third episode of a Manchester United rebuild is done. Don't forget to like the video if you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one in the fourth and final episode. If we get to 500 likes, I'll drop it in 2 days' time.